everybody settle down. Settle down. Okay. I see you. I see you over there. Settle down. This is a podcast where we dive deep into the complexities of today's workout climate, the gym, and things like that. Each week, we tackle pressing issues. We explore like diverse opinions, diverse perspectives, especially when we're engaging with the fitness industry. Okay, tonight we have a guy who was at one point a competitor of mine. Uh, I consider him a friend. We competed against him. His name's Creative. Everybody welcome in Creative Fitness. Hey, what's going on, big dog?
What's going on?
Hey, man, you looking great, brother. You looking great. Yeah, and welcome to the late night show.
Appreciate
been a minute.
you.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yes,
It's been about
indeed, man.
almost 10 years, man. Let's hear that story. Like, I remember the last
Insane.
time we met each other. The last time we met each other, if you remember, I think it was like 2016 when I saw you the first time, right?
Yep.
Uh, Man, that was a rough time, and when you look back, at that day, man, when we first met each other. Now that was the wasn't that was I think that was UFE. I think that was one
Yep.
of the
That was
UFE classes.
UFP.
Yeah.
Exactly
Um,
right.
what was going on with you that day? Like how
Oh
did that day
man.
start for you?
You know what? I had so much going on with that. I had uh my wife with me. In fact, um, if I'm not mistaken, 2016. Um, I hadn't really won anything as of yet. So I was like
Yeah.
just really brand new to the game, and I just was learning and just really just trying to get everything down. So there's a lot of nerves trying to figure out posing and just the whole game in general. And you were instrumental, man, in guiding me through that whole scene. So I mean, it was great, bro.
Hey, I got this funny story that you have not heard yet, but I tell you the story. I don't know if you remember when we talked backstage. By the way, you appealed that day, bro. You appealed that day. You was definitely a threat that day. So there's a story I tell everybody about the time when I met you, and what happened was me and you were backstage, and we were talking about. I think it might have been one of your first shows, if I'm not mistaken. And I tell the story how me and you were talking about, what happens when you go out on stage. I was like, hey, when you go out, when they say this, turn left, and do your pose from the
Yeah,
left. Do you remember that? Right,
right.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
I remember, yo. That's insane.
Yeah. Man, what did you do? What did you do to look like that? Like you appealed on that day. What did you do to look like that?
Yeah, you know what? I had a really good coach. I always stuck with online trainers. That was the way I always got in shape for these shows. So at the time, the guy, what's his name? Wow, I can't think of this coach's name right now. When it comes to mind, I'll let you know. But his diet program was just really succinct. He just had a way of he had it all mapped out, right? Like a couple weeks before, I was gonna be full but puffy, and then I was gonna be flat, and then it just so happened that just that day, man, I was in great shape. And you know what's so funny is that I really didn't have a lot of money, right, at the end of that show. And so I don't know if you remember, but I wasn't going to take pictures.
Yes,
I wasn't going
yes,
to
I
get any
remember that.
professional pictures.
I remember
And
that.
you specifically told me, bro, take pictures because you don't know if you'll ever look like this again. You
Yep,
know?
yeah,
And those are some of the best pictures I ever took. I still use those pictures to this day,
yeah,
for my branding, for everything. Yeah,
yeah.
so, I'm grateful.
I the how'd you even hear about the show? If you were from New York, right?
Yeah, from New York City. You know what happened was I was just looking for natural shows. So like my path to bodybuilding was just completely different. You know, it was just I was just a guy that was just trying to just stay in shape. Again, I never really wanted to, I was trying to avoid being overweight, right? Like the rest of my family. Um, and so, like, I was doing all types of diets, like slow diets, a slow carb diet, the no carb diet, raw food, vegan for a while. I did everything, you know. And actually, a coworker of mine saw me, like, working out. I'm also a subway conductor, New York City Transit. Um,
Okay.
and so a coworker of mine just saw me working out like all the time on the platform, doing jump rope and eating beans out of cans and all these weird diets. And he basically said, my last name is Dunahai. He said, Dunahai, he said, like, what are you doing? You're doing all this working out, but all you do is turn a key. Like, that's your job, you know? He said, why don't you go do something with that? And so I thought about it, and the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, let's try bodybuilding, you know?
Okay.
Um, and so, I just looked up a competition. The first thing that came up was OCB, right?
Ooh,
So I didn't,
okay.
so I did a competition for the OCB.
You did
Um,
OCB?
I did OCB. That's how
That
I
is
started.
huge. That's
Yeah.
actually it's funny because that's how I started. I started with the OCB. I think that was 2015, late 2015, something like that. OCB. Yeah, yeah. How'd you do in
Interesting.
that show? How'd you do in that show?
Yeah. So the very first show that I did, the first OCB show, I came in dead last. It was like, it was horrible because I actually competed in physique, right? So,
Okay.
so like me not knowing anything, right? Physique is like, you know, a much smaller, slender, type body, and I actually didn't know anything about contest prep, so I did it myself. I was like 230. I would always stay around like 230, 235. So I said, what I want to do is, if I get to 195, I'll be as lean as I could possibly be, you
Okay.
know? And so it wasn't until I really got backstage that I saw the condition of all the other athletes, compared to myself. And, you know, and so like I went out there, I was like laughing at myself the whole time I'm out there, I didn't even stay for the night show, right? Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I didn't even stay for the night show, that first competition. The second time I competed was in New Jersey, and I ended up coming in third,
Was it
and
also OCB? Was that also
it was
OCB?
also OCB, exactly right. And then I just so happened to come across the UFE. Just it just so happened that I just happened to see, oh, that's another natural competition. I jumped in, and that was all she wrote.
Oh, and that's when we met.
Exactly right.
Oh wow. Yeah, we have a similar past. I competed in NAAB something, right? My first show as a natural, and I got second. Uh, and the guy that beat me by 1 point. Uh,
Unbelievable.
yeah, and his coach came up and said, "Hey, I think you got potential. Can I take you on as a client?" And I thought, okay, it can't hurt. And I'm like, I didn't have much money at the time, and I told him that. He said, "Hey, you don't have to pay me to train, but if you win, then compensate me." And the next show was OCB. So my next show was OCB. And so I got second in that first show, and then I got my pro card that very next show in OCB. So by the time that third show is when I met you. So it was the exact, we were on the same path. The third show is when I met you. Do you remember what? Do you remember what? Because I was at that point I was already a pro. I was already a natural pro.
Right. You're already a
Right. And do you remember what categories you were competing in the UFE show?
and again
Do you remember what categories you competed in the UFE show?
in the UFE. I competed in bodybuilding and classic physique.
Now, I think you also did at the last moment. You did muscle model
That's exactly right. That's
at the
right.
last minute. At the last minute, you did muscle model because I still got photos of it. And I should put them up on the screen for people to see. It was me, you, and another guy uh, that did that muscle model competition. I did. I did. Uh, I did open, obviously UFE. I did bodybuilding, and then I did the muscle model, and I also did physique. I don't know if you still remember that. I was in such phenomenal shape that day, but this show ain't about me. This is about you. So during that competition, if you remember, what we ended up doing was um, have you, let's talk about you, bro. Have you ever do you have clients now that you do now? What are you doing?
So now what I'm doing is I'm still working. I'm still a New York City subway conductor, but I'm also an online coach. I've been doing online fitness coaching for the last 2.5 years. Um, and really my focus is on um, 35-year-old men, who are looking to reclaim their health, boost longevity, and I'm really big on like controlling insulin, because what happens is our blood sugar tend to creep up as we age, and then that begins the downfall of everything else.
Uh, have you ever had anyone have any issues with the protocol that you might have, the workout protocol or the eating protocol?
Um, Generally speaking, uh, no, because what I do is I did the ketogenic diet for many years. Um,
Explain that
in
to me. I've
fact,
heard it, but I really don't know what it is. Explain it to me.
sure, sure. Well, in bodybuilding, there's who's this very famous bodybuilder who's known for training all of his clients ketogenically. Um, um, I can't think of the name right now, but the ketogenic diet is primarily a low carb diet where you're teaching the body to use fat for fuel, right? As opposed to using carbs as their primary source of fuel.
Okay.
And the benefit of the ketogenic diet is that um, the body begins to tap into its own body fat stores, right? So you tend to be able to maintain a very lean physique, um, without too much effort in terms of controlling calories.
Now, how do you get into that? How do you like tap into that?
Well, the primary thing is just restricting carbs, right? If you restrict carbs for after about 72 hours, um, then your body begins to switch over, right? And what happens is you might have a period where there's a lull in energy, right? As your body learns to adapt to this new way of eating. Because actually, what the ketogenic diet is doing is it's mimicking fasting in the body, right? So the body kind of thinks it's starving, and so what it begins to do is it starts to use its own fat for fuel until it acclimates itself to using fat for fuel. And then you'll feel this surge of energy, and you'll find that you're able to go for long periods of time, right? So it's really good for someone that has a lot of body fat, right? And would like to find that significantly come down.
Did you after the UFE show? Because I remember when I saw you competing, I was cheering for you to win in a couple of them categories, and I felt like you should have won in a couple of them categories. And I was
Appreciate
backstage like,
that.
what the hell happened, right?
Yeah.
What happened after that show?
So after that show, after that show with the UFB, actually I didn't compete in the UFB anymore after that show, right? Um, um, what I ended up doing was I switched over and I started competing in the NGA, right? The NGA. And then in what year was that? what year was that? When I turned 40, right? So I'm 46 now. So that's about 6 years ago. Um, at the NGA competition in uh, uh, where was this? Chicago, right? Here's what happened. I got married, right? I got married on October 26th. Um, October 27th, I flew to Chicago for the competition. October 28th, on my 40th birthday, I swept the competition, right? So I won classic physique, bodybuilding, and and I got the overall, you know, and that was like the highlight of my life, So I'm crying on stage, everyone singing happy birthday, you know, my wife was like totally surprised because she didn't think I was gonna win.
Awesome journey.
Yeah, that was like really the highlight. After that, I competed a few more times. I competed one time in Washington D.C. I came in second, um, and then I competed twice at the Nationals with the NGA. Both of those are in Florida. Um, the first time I came in third, and then the last time I won the show. Um, in Pro Classic Physique Masters.
Okay, sweet,
So,
sweet.
yep.
Was it recent that you had athletes coming to you that you started training? Like, are you training any athletes?
Actually, generally speaking, I haven't been training athletes. I've been training a lot of my um, like coworkers, former athletes, people that are trying to reclaim their mojo, so to speak. That's really my wheelhouse. Anyone that's really trying to uh, do body recomposition, right? And anyone that's like on the border of right, like high blood sugar, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. Um, my expertise is bringing you back from the brink, right, back into that state of health.
What would you say was your worst prep?
My worst prep, I would say, was uh, the second time, the first time that I competed in nationals for the NGA, and the first time, and actually what happened was I prepped myself. I prepped myself
Okay.
for the show. Um, I prepped myself for the show, and for the whole prep, I was really lean. I was doing really good, but where I missed out was the actual um, pre-competition setup, right? Like I think I overshot. My carbs were too high. I kept my carbs really low towards the end. And I wasn't as happy with the physique as I would have liked to be.
Mm. Did you ever end up using diuretics to help drop some of the water?
So really, I would just use like dandelion tea. Um, and funny enough, anytime I competed before, that was the first time I had actually used a diuretic. I used a diuretic for the last competition that I just had. Um, but prior to that, I didn't use diuretics at all. In fact, I was drinking water, right, like the day of the competition,
So then,
most of the time.
how are you dealing with water retention? Because stress causes you to hold water.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I think most of the time I've been kind of just blessed, right? Genetically speaking, but I usually didn't have that problem, right? I wasn't carrying that problem. Funny enough, in the off season, I tend to carry a lot of water. But when I'm usually doing prep, I tend to be pretty dry. I tend to come in, pretty lean.
Mm. What was your stack like, if you can remember?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't really change. I even use it now. It's like creatine, um,
Okay.
um, uh, beta alanine, um, citrulline, citrulline malate. I also use uh, betaine. right? Betaine is one of my go-to supplements. Um, and then I'll also use arginine, right? I have citrulline with the arginine. Really, I just try to have a lot of nitric oxide, like constantly flowing. I also think that's a big key for health, right? Generally speaking, right? That nitric oxide. So I try to have some type of ingredient like that in my diet, dang near every day, you know. Um, and then there's just whey protein. I use whey protein. I do use amino acids, right? Branched chain amino acids. Now I've switched to essential amino acids. I tend to use essential amino acids, more often than not. Um, and, and I keep my protein pretty high. I think I'm someone that does well with a higher protein and on the lower end of carbs, right? Over the years, I've begun to actually increase my carbs, right? I found that I'm able to tolerate carbs a little bit better than I used to be. And that's because I'm not carrying as much body fat as I used to. So I'm probably more insulin sensitive. Um, but generally speaking, I always keep my protein like pretty high, right? Like somewhere in the range of like 1.5, somewhere around 1.5 grams per pound of body weight, and even above.
Okay, so I was hearing some of those supplements, man. I've heard them, but I don't really know what they do. You want to talk about them? So for people that's unfamiliar with
Sure,
it.
sure, absolutely. Um, so citrulline,
Oh, looks like we might have glitch in it right now. So for a minute, I was talking to you and get your thing back on. So those compounds you were using, it was kind of interesting, like beta citrulline and beta alanine. Like I particularly have not used creatine in years. I would probably
and
say I
things
don't
of
know.
that nature.
Yeah.
Um, but that citrulline malate is a precursor to arginine. So when you take citrulline, citrulline converts to arginine in the body, and that's like much better. It's a much longer life, giving you a longer pump, right? Bigger, better pumps. Um, there's another one in there, beta alanine, right? Beta alanine increases power, increases endurance, right? Boxers have been known to use beta alanine, and over 6 weeks or so, they begin to see somewhere in the range of like a 10 to 12% increase in their punching power, right? So again, same effect as with creatine, right? Creatine gives you a little more strength, right? Because it adds some buoyancy to those muscles, which allows you to push them harder so you can break them down further and you can build them up even better, right? So there's beta alanine, there's citrulline, there's um, beta alanine, citrulline, betaine, right? Betaine is like uh, a wonder in terms of it decreases certain levels in the body of something called homocysteine, right? Homocysteine is uh, is something that can actually like break down muscle, and actually like it causes extracellular damage. As you get older, we find that we have these increases in this homocysteine, um, and so betaine actually counteracts that. Um,
Okay.
um, yeah, also betaine has glycine in it, right? So I take the form of betaine that I take has glycine in it, and glycine has an effect of like calming the nervous system and allowing that blood flow, right? And funny enough, there's a video that I'm in the process of doing, um, where I talk about the best marketed pre-workout so far, and that is Jim Stepani has a pre-workout called Pre-Gym X. And funny enough, it's almost damn near every supplement.
Use.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
it's every supplement that I use. Um, but it's already formulated. So I've been using that lately, as well as caffeine. It's got caffeine in it, of course, which is the number one uh, right pre-workout supplement on the planet.
So, what got you started in coaching? Because I know once you became a pro, why'd you decide to start doing coaching?
So funny enough, it was really demand. On my job, everyone knows me as the fitness guy, right? And a lot of guys like to say, "Hey, I remember when you were fat," right? Like that's a big thing, right? On my job, everyone remembers, right? Like that, I used to be chunky, and then uh, I just became like the guy that people turn to. And like I said, the way that I got into bodybuilding was way more on the nutrition side than it ever was on like the actual working out side, right? Um, because I had studied that for a long time. I was trying to find out different combinations of things that would help me get lean, right? Right, like live longer, right? I was in that whole longevity space, and I was trying to kind of like avoid the pitfalls. My mom passed at 49. She had a double aneurysm from high blood pressure, right? And my father, he passed about 9 years ago now, from Parkinson's disease, right? My sister, who was 2 years older than me, she passed away at 35 years old. She was overweight. My brother's still alive. He's on the heavy side. So, so I've been studying nutrition and like trying to find ways to like manage health for a long time, right? So when I just added the bodybuilding into it, you know, uh, I really had this wealth of information to share with people, and I'm always sharing, and people are always asking me to take them to the gym and train them. But I have two young kids at home. I have a 6-year-old, a 5-year-old. I have a wife. I have a full-time job. You know, and I really never had time to train people in the gym. I'm like, I don't have time for my own workouts. Let alone training other people. Um, and I didn't know that the online space existed for anything other than bodybuilding prep, because that's what I've done my whole bodybuilding career, right? Like I've hired an online coach, uh, for every prep season, and I followed their tutelage to the win. So when I found out that that space actually existed, where I could actually help other people, it was a no-brainer. And I
What
jumped
was your
on.
eating like? What was your eating
Um,
like through all that?
generally speaking, for my contest prep,
Yeah.
normally I'm a 6 meal a day guy, right? 6 meal a day, um, and I tend to keep my carbs like in the range of um, between 100 and 250 grams of carbs
Per day.
per day. Yep,
All right. And when you
yep.
say carbs, what type of carbs are you talking?
So that would be potatoes. That would be rice. Um, very little fruit. Just recently, as I found I could tolerate carbs better, I began to incorporate more fruit into the diet. But generally speaking, it would be like some form of vegetable, and then either it would be a white rice, it would be a potato, something in that nature.
Hey,
Sweet
how was your
potato.
family? How was your family dealing with you traveling for these competitions?
So everything I've done, I've always done uh, under duress, right? It was very my my wife, I'm proud of her because now she's in the gym, and she's walking and doing things, but she's you know never subscribed to that lifestyle, right? So it'd be like it was always a lot of a big pull, right? Like you're always in the gym. I need you home. There's better things you could be doing with your time. you know it's a funny dichotomy, because it's like I'm a superhero at work, right? And an inspiration to all those who I meet. Um, my wife is like, "Can you stop working out for for just 1 week and spend some time at home?" Um, so that's always been like a fine line that I've had to walk.
What's the best way to know if your clients are actually following the protocol that you prescribe to them?
So the good thing is that now I have my own app, and I check in with them, right? Once a week, I
I think you're having some technical difficulties again. Um, so I remember when I met you on show day at UFE, I met you backstage, and on site you were a threat, just on site. So, you know, until your mic starts working, I'll talk about that day. And I remember trying to tell you how to come out, come on stage and pose. And what ended up happening was I was giving you bogus information uh, because I didn't necessarily want you to do so great that day. Okay, welcome back. Uh, so last question I asked was, what was the best way to know if your clients was following the workout protocol that you prescribed? And that's where you left off.
right. So that's the great thing with this online platform, right? I have an app where I can check every day and see what they're doing, right? Are they hitting the workouts? Are they logging their meals, right? I could track their weight from week to week. I usually have them take pictures on Fridays. So Fridays, I'm able to look and see, are we making progress, right? Are we plateauing? And then we adjust accordingly.
You want to plug your app?
Absolutely. Well, really, the best way to reach me is to follow me on Creative Fitness on Instagram. If you follow me on Creative Fitness Instagram, I send you all the details, and see if you could join the team.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's interesting. Okay, man. Well, I think the last part of the interview I'd like to ask you is like about your family life right now. So, how's your kids? Like, what's their name, their ages, male, female, how's school, things of that nature.
Absolutely. So I have a 6-year-old named Ralphie, right?
Okay.
Right. I'm Ralph. That's Ralphie. I also have a 5-year-old daughter, Asia Lynn. Um, and those two little kids right there, I mean, they keep me going all day, right? Like I'm blessed. I'm blessed to have been gifted, with these kind of children. They're dynamic, awesome. They're just wonderful, energetic, open children. And I spend the majority of my time um, outside of work and working out with them. Um, and and I also have a 21-year-old. He's a big boy, right? Marquise. Um, and and I also have another 21-year-old, which is my nephew, whom I adopted, Nicholas, and he's away. He's in the Coast Guard, and he's doing well. He's doing well. I have a wife, beautiful wife, and and we live here, in New York City, and it's a beautiful thing.
Would you be against your kids getting into the bodybuilding? Not necessarily fitness, but just in particular bodybuilding.
You know, I I would say that no, not against bodybuilding, but what I've come to learn is that like there's two streams of bodybuilding, right? There's natural bodybuilding, um, which gratefully, I just in the little bit of time that I've been in this space, I've seen it grow tremendously, grow tremendously. But I still know that the pull of um, quote unquote synthetic, right, usage It's still out there, and I'm not against it, right? I'm not against it. Um, but just in terms of the safety and well-being of of my children, that would be something that I would discourage. I would discourage just because I know the long-term effects of that, right? Um, but in terms of building muscle, the research is already out there that it doesn't stunt your growth, right? So like I have kettlebells for my kids. My kids do kettlebell swings, you know, um, and you know, I believe that muscle is longevity. So the earlier we start, the earlier we get on that path, the better.
Yeah, yeah. But I've gotten into supplementation myself, and I guess like you, I'm not necessarily against enhancement. I've trained some enhanced competitors, and I'm training some people now. I got some decent clients right now.
That's
It's gonna,
excellent.
yeah, and we'll. I'm gonna have you back again for a second interview, uh, if you don't mind. And so, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Late Night Podcast. I'm gonna extend my heartfelt gratitude to you and to your family for your unwavering support of me and things that I've done. You've always been available for me. I think at this point, oddly enough, we've known each other for damn near 10 years, and it just don't seem like it because time flies, right? Your contribution,
Unbelievable.
yeah, man, yeah. Your contribution to my show, is welcome. And I'm going to do what I can to contribute to, creative fitness. And, the fitness arena wouldn't be the way it is without you. So stay true, stay tuned. I'm gonna bring you back for another show for the Late Night Podcast.